In economics, the law of diminishing returns states that there's a point at which the level of benefits gained is less than the amount of money or energy invested. In cinema, generally speaking, if you watch something repeatedly, you'll gain less and less with each viewing. Even the reward of your favourite film will change the more you watch it, or so general thinking would assume anyway. In some cases, though, it takes a repeat for something to really be appreciated as it deserves to be. Some of the best whiskey is double-aged. Some of the best chips are twice cooked. There's even a song about the first being the worst and the second the best. Quite how the third's hairy chest ties in, I don't know, but we'll find a way. If all that concrete evidence isn't enough for you, there are some acting performances throughout some of the biggest Hollywood films that only mature properly the second time you watch them too. Looks like old wine, vintage cheese, and Jack Black all have something in common after all. And here's your warning. There's a few spoilers throughout this, so tread carefully, ye who have not watched old movies. Otherwise, I am the second coming of Ash from Whatculture, and these are 9 great movie performances that got better the second time you watched. 9. Guy Pearce, Memento. On first viewing, Guy Pearce's performance as the tragic Leonard in Christopher Nolan's breakout feature is hugely impressive. He is the heart and hero of a fairly typical but chronologically confused neo-noir, unpicking a twisting narrative mystery around the death of his wife and the assault that led to his profound memory loss. If only he had Facebook, he'd have been able to document every moment of his life like the rest of us. Memento is a genius concept on its own, with Pearce's performance acting as a dependable, sympathetic anchor even as the story jumps between 2 points on the timeline. Even before the revelation, it's a performance marked by existential dread, which is exactly Nolan's intention. And then when that revelation eventually comes and we learn the truth of Leonard's tragic story, the film immediately demands you to frantically rewind it and sit through it once more. This time, you watch as a detective investigating all the clues that lead to the truth, rather than the same case Leonard is working through. It makes the whole thing even more impressive, losing absolutely nothing of its nuance because of your awareness heading in. 8. Jack Nicholson, The Shining. The Shining is pretty much the single most compelling film that captures the warped, controversial genius of Stanley Kubrick. He takes Stephen King's wonderful source material and spins it into something entirely its own, to the extent that King and his fans were less than enthusiastic about the handling of the story, but Kubrick manages to imbue subtext and provocative symbolism in a whole new way. Crucially though, it is a film that demands subsequent rewatches, particularly because the density of the story makes it impossible to appreciate everything at once. And those rewatches only improve Jack Nicholson's stunning, career-best performance as Jack. Knowing the revelation at the end, the one that's hinted by a supernatural photograph, you head back in looking for clues of his true nature, and watching him closer is infinitely rewarding. There is subtlety behind the mania and his spiral into darkness, and it is horribly convincing. His Johnny never felt so real. 7. Bruce Willis, The Sixth Sense. Bruce Willis might get a lot of flack these days for his career choices, but he remains a gifted, versatile actor whose credits don't always match his ability. Willis has been genuinely brilliant over the years, in the likes of Death Becomes Her, Unbreakable and Die Hard, but his most surprising turn came in The Sixth Sense. As Malcolm Crowe, he is a picture of restraint, a cynic dropped into a ghost story he doesn't believe in, whilst the audience can see how wrong he is. The first time you watch it, he's a mentor, gradually building a rapport with young Cole and learning to give him a voice. He's a fairly conventional hero, with emotional turmoil of his own that is barely hinted at, and the kind of backstory of failing a former patient that makes his link to Cole even more rewarding. But then on second viewing, after we know that he's a ghost, and don't act like you've never heard that before, the perception of him completely changes. Knowing that Shyamalan used various tricks to frame ghostly sequences, predominantly the use of red, you're primed to go back and investigate Willis's performance for the same hints. And impressively, it all holds up fantastically. It's an artful con built both on Shyamalan's writing but also Willis's acting, and how convincing it is only improves the latter with subsequent watches. 6. Christian Bale, American Psycho. Christian Bale's Patrick Bateman is another character who changes completely in the audience's perception thanks to a revelation, or in this case the hint of one, that comes late on in the story. The moment we get some suggestion that he's so far out of touch with reality that he might have imagined the crimes that have come to define our journey with him, everything turns upside down. Trying to shove a cat into an ATM will do that to your audience. A second viewing then, again, is about investigation, about attempting to unpick what he actually did, who he killed, and what was all perverse fantasy. The key is that there's absolutely no hint in there of where the line is. As the audience, you're no more aware of what is real, which makes Bale's irresistible, visceral performance all the more rewarding as you watch it again. And even more surprisingly, after seeing how ludicrous the ending gets, the second time you watch it, you'll begin to realise that it is the blackest of black comedies. Almost as if the part fantasy reveal makes it okay to see the humour a lot more, and you're free of questioning what the f*** is wrong with you. 5. Jon Favreau, Chef. Jon Favreau's performance in The Simply Wonderful Chef may not seem to fit with the others in this list, but it is the crowning glory in a film that becomes more and more intoxicating every time you watch it. It's a film told entirely wrongly in traditional terms, with all of the dramatic difficulty right at the start and the rest of the story geared towards a sort of humanist propaganda that will make your heart as hungry as the food sequences make your belly. It's food porn for people who want to see actual food porn rather than a hot dog in someone's ass. Crucially, Favreau's role, and indeed the whole process of making this film, is a cathartic release. And it's only the second time you watch it that the subtext really appears. Favreau made Chef as an antidote to big studio films that he didn't have full control over. A palate cleanser after the unfortunate experience of Cowboys and Aliens, which honestly sounded like a surefire hit from that title alone, and then Iron Man 2 before that. It's the food he wanted to make whilst his overbearing restaurant owner bosses were demanding he made chocolate lava cake. And his rebirth as a chef in touch with his passion is Favreau's story as a filmmaker. Once you know that, watching him again is even more heartwarming. Plus, it is just wholesome to watch nice things more than once. 4. Jack Black, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. When he's great in movies, Jack Black is really, really great. He's eminently watchable in School of Rock, Bernie, and High Fidelity, and also The Pick of Destiny. Great movies, and I stand by them all. Thankfully, it looks like he's put the nonsense roles like Gulliver's Travels and The D Train behind him and is in a renaissance period of sorts, crowned by his genius performance in Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. In a film defined mostly by effects, impressive action set pieces, and the chemistry between The Rock and Kevin Hart, Black still manages to steal the show. Playing a teenage girl trapped in the body of a fully grown, middle-aged man, his observations are incredible. And considering how easily he could have gone the route of a Wayans gross-out comedy character, the subtlety he brings to the performance is glorious. It is so good, in fact, that it deserves rewatching closer without the story getting in the way, which reveals even more of how great it is. You go, girl. The sisterhood is one man stronger. 3. Ewan McGregor, the Star Wars prequels. Sometimes a performance ends up being underappreciated because of its context. In the case of Ewan McGregor's performance as Obi-Wan Kenobi across the Star Wars prequel trilogy, and in particular the first movie, there is so much questionable context around him that it is impossible not to be completely distracted. Strip away all of that distraction, which can only be achieved by consuming it once, and McGregor's performance is far easier to appreciate. Once you can put aside George Lucas's many missteps and the story is out of the way, you start to see how great he is. Not only in his subtle tribute to Alec Guinness, but also in his own respect. Even when he's lumbered with Hayden Christensen's performance to feed off, or when he's engaging with Jar Jar Binks, he is brilliant, never once letting the material distract him from his character work. That's definitely something to admire when you really remember what this movie is like. 2. Brad Pitt, Fight Club. Fight Club was one of those litmus paper artworks that channeled a cultural movement and hit a nerve with an entire generation of disaffected youths. In short, it made a load of angry boys start punching each other for fun, as if they needed any more motivation. Admittedly, it was widely misunderstood as a monument to the challenges facing modern masculinity, when in fact it is a criticism of toxic masculinity, but it partly sold on how cool its most iconic character was. Tyler Durden might have been a distilled Anarchy for Dummies figure who is supposed to realise is the villain of the piece by the end, but he's also inherently aspirational. His very creation is a fantasy. He's better looking, in better shape, has no social anxiety, diddles who and how he wants, and has seemingly successfully cast off the rules and limits of society. That's why he became such an important character. The twist obviously also demands you to re-watch to see whether it's obvious that Tyler is a projection. and the knowledge that he is ostensibly an imaginary friend just makes him even better to compare. 1. Christian Bale, The Prestige. Christian Bale's acting ability is such that you shouldn't be surprised that he's on this list twice, nor that it's for 2 entirely different performances. Well, 3 really. The Prestige is one of his biggest achievements in performance, despite the fact that the role is nowhere near as flashy or as provocative as some of his others. And it becomes even better the second time you watch it because of the twist that reveals you've actually been watching Bale twice without realising it. Wait, what? The genius of this dual performance is that there are very subtle hints of when he's playing which Borden twin, particularly when he's being forced into performing the illusion himself. It's a masterful performance from an actor who revels in roles that offer him a contradiction like Batman and Bruce Wayne or Patrick Bateman's public front and his murderous heart. And watching it repeatedly only adds to the appreciation of it. And that's our list. What other badass performances belong on this list? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash and this has been Whatculture. Make sure to subscribe to the Whatculture YouTube channel for more lists like this. And don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. Thanks for watching.